Thank you to the children who recite to start the program, as well as the reciters of the Salam. May everyone's efforts be rewarded, inshallah. And tonight is our last night with Mulana Qazwini delivering his lecture, which has been in the spirit of Ashura. It's been a very enlightening and just full of knowledge, the lectures, and we appreciate him coming to Atlanta to deliver his lectures. And I would ask for Dr. Mahdi to say a few words as well.
I will just add a few words to talking what he has said, and really on behalf of Janabia and especially our youth, who would like to thank Mulana Qazwini, who has really done a great job. I think he has engaged the youth, and I really, thank him from our heart that you have really done a great job, and we want to have you back, inshallah, and you will let me know as soon as you know your schedule for the next Muharram as well. And as I think people really appreciated it, and they said we should have Mulana come here every 3 months to have workshop. So we will see what how your schedule goes, but we will love to have you again in Zainabia, and thank you for really giving us such a eloquent lectures, and done a great job. So and I will also like to thank the whole Muharram team, which was interim team. There was nobody elected, but everyone really pitched in and did a great job, and they were all ready to take care of it. So I and we really appreciate your hard work, and we want your support all along, financial as well as physical support, to help Zainabia do great programs here. Salawat. Yeah, I would like to invite Mulana to deliver the last lecture.
For this year.
For this.
Before I begin, I want to all praises due to Allah and to Him alone. And for the end of the day, salam, for without them we would be lost. And I want to thank the community here, beginning from the leadership. There are too many names to name, from the leadership and to the participants and the youth. And my favorite part, the children, of course. Being with the children and being with the young ones. For giving me this opportunity, I'm not deserving of the praise that you've given me. It's very humble. And if there is any thanks to be given, then it is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator and our sustainer, and to the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So thank you for the wonderful treatment and accommodation, and for your participation, inshallah. And I hope that this is not the last time that we cross ways. But with that, I would like to begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين. What is our role towards our leadership, towards the Imam of our time? And to answer that question, we have to ask ourselves, who is our leadership? Our leadership, as the followers of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, of course, is Allah, beginning with Allah, God, is whom we worship. But we follow, after Allah, we follow the commandments of the Prophet, and we follow the commandments of those appointed as the successors of the Prophet. إِنَّمَا وَلِيُّكُمُ اللَّهُ. Surely, innama, surely, the Quran says, your wali, and the word wali has many different meanings, as you know, in the Arabic language. But in this context, wali is he who has authority above you, he who has command. Innama waliyukum Allah, number one is Allah, wa rasuluhu, and his messenger. Walladina amanu, and number three is those who believe. But the Quran describes in this verse who is specifically those who believe. It's not anybody who believes has authority. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةِ. So they're the ones that establish their prayers, وَيُؤْتُونَ الزَّكَاةَ, and give their alms, وَهُمْ رَاكِعُونَ, in the state of ruku', in the state of prostrating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this verse was revealed in the favor of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib because he was the one who established prayer, and establishing prayer is different than offering prayer. Establishing prayer, يقيمون الصلاة, and gave the zakat, gave the alms while he was in the state of ruku'. It is said that one day a man came into the masjid, a beggar, asking the believers for alms, for zakat. And when Imam Ali alayhi salam heard him, the Imam stuck out his hand, and on his hand was a ring of value, and the man took it as a sign to receive the ring. So he came to Amir al-Mu'mineen and he removed the ring from his finger and he sold it, and this was considered a sadaqah. So this verse was revealed saying that those who have authority above you are Allah, His Messenger, and those who give the zakat while they are prostrating, while they establish the prayer. And that description only fits Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And of course, what authority belongs to the Imam also belongs to the Imams that are after him, that he appointed. And this is very clear and very apparent from the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt. So our leadership, our primary leadership, is Allah, the Prophet, and the Imams. The Imams then, later on, as secondary leadership, also appointed the scholars of the nation, the righteous scholars of the nation, and they gave us specific criteria to be found in a scholar, and if that criteria is to be found in that scholar, then he is to be followed by the layman. So one hadith from, and this is probably the most popular hadith in this regard, from the 11th Imam, Imam al-Hasan al-Askari it says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ كَانَ مِنَ الْفُقَهَاءِ, and if you find among the fuqaha, which is the jurists, صَائِنًا لِنَفْسِهِ, he is protective of himself, حَافِظًا لِدِينِهِ, he is preserving his faith, مُخَالِفًا لِهَوَاهِ, he goes against what his whimsical will tells him to do, or his whimsical desire leads him to. And a number of conditions, he says, if you find a scholar, a jurist with that criteria, فَعَلَى الْعَوَامِ أَن يُقَلِّدُوهُ, it is incumbent upon the layman, the general population, to follow them, يُقَلِّدُوهُ. And this is where the concept of taqlid comes from. Now some have disputed what this hadith means, But generally, there is an understanding that there is a not specific, but rather general appointment from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt to the scholars that they would lead, they would act as the leaders of the Ummah in their affairs after them. Because the Imams at their time, their leadership was multifaceted. They were spiritual guides, they were religious guides, and they were social guides, meaning that socially they also set an example for us as to how to live our lives. And this is where you find that infallibility, asma, is really important. When it comes to our 12th Imam, we know that our 12th Imam went through a period of occultation, which is referred to as al-ghayb al-sughra, the minor occultation. And this is where the Imam vanished, not completely, but from public eyesight, for specific reasons. Because people knew long before the Imam was born, in the year 255 after Hijrah, long before that, they knew that someone would eventually appear from the progeny of the Prophet, because the Prophet constantly spoke about this, and almost every Imam that came after, especially during the time of the 5th, 6th, and 7th Imams and onwards, would speak about the person who would have the name of the Prophet, which is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who would appear at the end of times, and يَمْلَأُ الْأَرْضَ قِسْطًا وَعَدْلًا بَعْدَ أَنْ مُلِئَ ظُلْمًا وَجَوْرًا. He would fill the earth with equality and justice after it has been filled with inequality and injustice and oppression. So it was very, very known that someone was going to be born from that family. It was inevitable. So the authorities had their eyes on this individual, and that happened to be who we consider to be the 12th Imam. And when his father passed away, he went into a period he vanished from the public eye for about 70 years. And in those 70 years, he had appointed, one after another, 4 specific representatives. And these representatives acted as the liaison and the connection between the followers of Ahlul Bayt and the Imam. So if they had a letter, or if the Imam had a letter to be delivered to them, or any sort of directive, it was delivered through these 4, one after another. And by the time the last one passed away, and this period was about 70 years, the Imam went into a larger occultation, al-ghayb al-kubra, and that is the ghayba that began from that time until now. And now we are experiencing that ghayba, where the Imam is alive, but he is not present from the public eye. And the Imam, of course, left directives with his what we refer to as the nuwab, which is the representatives, as to who the Shia, who the followers of Ahlul Bayt would follow in the meantime. And he said, of course, he mentioned the scholars. He mentioned مَنِ ادَّعَ الرُّؤْيَةَ فَكَذِّبُوهُ, he who claims ru'ya, and scholars are divided as to what this means. So ru'ya means witnessing. That if someone claims to have seen me, then do not believe him. Some scholars say ru'ya here does not mean he has seen me, but rather someone who claims to specifically represent me. So someone who says that I am the specific representative of the 12th Imam, that the 12th Imam has chosen me specifically as the leader of the Ummah. He says, فَكَذِّبُوهُ, know that this person is a liar. And throughout history, there are many people who have either risen to claim to represent the Imam specifically, that they are the specific representatives, or they have claimed to rise as the Imam himself throughout the Muslim world, in different places, in the Indian subcontinent, and in Africa, and in Arabia. Different personalities have risen up claiming that they are either the Imam or they represent the Imam, specifically. So there are specific representatives and there are general representatives. The general representatives are the scholars. But even during that time, where we still follow the commandments of our scholars because we consider them general representatives, our number one area of loyalty lies to the Imam themselves, because the Imam is still present, the Imam is still alive. And we believe that the Imam, through the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has access to his followers in that he is able to witness what they do on a daily basis, should that be required. The eighth Imam, Imam Ali ibn Musa alayhi salam, he mentioned this hadith. He said, he mentioned the following. I may have mentioned this hadith before. He said the following. One day a man came to him and he said, Ya Rasulullah, I want you to pray for me. I want you to do a dua for me and my children, my progeny. And so the Imam said to him the following. He said, not only do we pray for you, our followers, that we always have you in mind. We are always praying for you. He says, not only that, but that your deeds are displayed to us every day and every night by the will of Allah, and we see what's going on. We understand we understand your concerns. The pain that you feel, we feel that pain. The happiness that you feel, we also feel that happiness. When we get together and express our pain over what happened to Imam Hussein, the first people to feel that pain before us are the Ahlul Bayt themselves. They are watching over us. They understand that we are getting together, we're commemorating Imam Hussein, we're commemorating this great legacy. So the Imams know they're not out of touch. We may feel that we are out of touch, but if we feel out of touch, is it because they have put a barrier, or because we have put a barrier? Because we have put a barrier. What creates a disconnect between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or between us and the Prophet, or us and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, it's not them, it's us. It's our own sins. You know, one of the supplications of the fourth Imam, Dua Abu Hamza al-Thumani, he says that, oh Allah, the only thing that creates a hijab is a what? A veil. The literal meaning of the word hijab in Arabic is a veil. He says the only thing that creates a hijab between your worshippers, your servants, meaning us as human beings, and you, is their sins. That's it. The more sinful you are, the more disobedient you are, the more cloudier your vision becomes. The more you purify yourself and the less sins you commit, and the more you devote yourself and the more obedient you become, the more clear your vision becomes. It's like a windshield, and you have a windshield wiper, and sometimes it doesn't work because there's too much on the windshield. So our leadership are the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. They know what we are struggling. They know what we go through. And our 12th Imam, the Imam of our time, has news of what we do and understands us. And so when we talk about intibah, and when we say Allahumma ajil li waliyika al-faraj, and when we say al-aman min fitnat al-zaman, the Imam understands and he knows the struggles that we're going through. The Imam can see what we are doing by the grace of Allah, by the permission of Allah. He can see what we are doing. When we talk about intibah, it's not that we're waiting for him, it's that he's waiting for us. This is true intibah, is that he's waiting for us. He's ready. There's no self-work that he has to do on himself. He's already there. He's reached that stage where he's ready. He's waiting for the right people. So he's waiting for us, not as much as we are waiting for him. More than we are waiting for him. So, one of the responsibilities, and this is what we get from the ahadith of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, is, well, what is our responsibility? The word intibah is repeated many times in the hadith of the 5th Imam and the 6th Imam and so on and so forth. If you want to get to know our 12th Imam and who he is and some of the aspects, read the ahadith of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. There are many books out there which have been translated into many different languages. Some of them are available online. You know, in the age of information, you don't have to have the book in front of you anymore. You have to be, of course, careful of the sources of information that you receive. But a lot has been translated, a lot has been put online. If you read this, there's a legacy that the hadith that the Imams have left behind for us in terms of hadith. And a lot of that describes even some of the personal traits of the Imam and physical appearance and some of the details of what happens at the end of times when he reappears. And when we ask ourselves, well, what is our role towards this imam? One word comes up, and that is intizar, waiting. But what does waiting mean? See, waiting, sometimes, you anticipate the arrival of someone. So you have someone that you love, a sibling, or a friend, or a cousin. When we were younger and we were told that a relative is going to come from out of state, they're going to come and visit us, or out of town, they're going to come and visit us, and you have a best friend that's a brother or a cousin or something. And you'll see kids, they'll do the funniest things today when you tell them that your relative is going to come from out of town, or you're going to go visit your relative. They prepare certain things for them. They'll prepare a postcard, or, when we knew that our relatives were coming over and staying with us, we'd prepare our room and make sure it's clean. If you have a parent or an uncle or someone coming from out of town, you make sure that you prepare the food that you know that they want to eat. This is all a part of, building up the anticipation. The more you care about that person and the deeper your connection with that person, the more you're going to anticipate their arrival. You count the minutes or you count the seconds. That's what intizar is. It's anticipation. And then sometimes there's that weird uncle that nobody likes and you don't really care about accommodating so much. But if it's someone that you love, someone who's a best friend, and you know they're coming from out of town and they're going to spend some time with you, you prepare for their arrival. You make sure that the house is clean and there's food that's cooked and they have a comfortable bed, and the bathroom has to have the right candle, it can't be the wrong scent. Little details that you use. Apply that to our waiting for the imam. If we love the imam, it's the little details that matter. It's the little adjustments that we make in our life. That's what intizar means. Abu Basir, one of the narrators, one of the companions of the sixth imam, Abu Basir is one of the top narrators of the ahadith of the sixth imam, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He breaks down intizar. He defines it. He defines what intizar is. And of course his teachings are from the imam, his teacher. He says intizar boils down to one word, and that is taqwa. If you have taqwa, then you are in a state of anticipation. Then you are in a state of waiting for your imam. Boils down to taqwa. And what is taqwa? I've never been able to come across a single worded definition of taqwa. Taqwa is more than just defining a word. Taqwa is an entire concept. There's an academic who wrote a book about the Quran, Fazlur Rahman. He was a Pakistani scholar who was at the University of Chicago, an intellectual. He wrote a book called Major Themes of the Quran. He's one of the major Islamic thinkers of the 20th century. A very, very well-written book called Major Themes of the Quran, which today is taught in academia and introductory courses about the Quran. That book is a go-to book about the themes that the Quran speaks about. And he was an academic, and so he has a very well-rounded academic approach to the Quran. When he defines taqwa, he says it's not fear. See, sometimes we say that it's just fear. Taqwa is you're afraid of God, like you're afraid of a boogeyman or something. And somehow that fear is supposed to make you pious, or it's supposed to make you righteous in some way. He says taqwa is when you are anchored within the boundaries of God. So God has boundaries for us. God talks about His boundaries in the Quran. And God speaks about Him disliking to see people cross those boundaries. So what are some of those boundaries? Obviously, lying, stealing, cheating, boundaries that have to do with physical relationships, illicit physical relationships. Those are all boundaries. And he says when you're squarely anchored within that is taqwa. That's how we define taqwa. So what taqwa really means is that there are boundaries and you don't cross those boundaries. So what does that mean? And this relates to intibah. So we're talking about responsibilities of the imam. So understanding, and by the way, this all builds into our relationship with the imam, our relationship with our leadership. You see, some communities, they might not have the right aqidah. They might not have the right belief system. They might not have the right theology. But their strength comes from their connection with their leadership. They have a strong connection to their leadership. Some communities, some of the offshoot Muslim communities that exist around the world and here, and we look at them and say, why are they so strong? And why do their leaders have good relationship with politicians here? And why do they have a strong sense of unity? Even though their theology, according to us, we believe that their theology is wrong. They believe in one extra imam or one extra prophet or whatever it is. You have to give them credit because they have a strong connection to their leadership. And that's why they're a strong community. John Maxwell, who's written dozens of books on leadership, he says everything rises and falls on leadership. Any community that you go to, any organization that you go to, whether it's a masjid or whether it's a business or a church or whatever it is, when you find strong leadership, you find a successful organization. But when you find no leadership, a lack of leadership, then there's no success. You look at teams. Teams, the players do most of the work. All right, the Bulls and the Lakers did a lot of work. The players did a lot of work. But they credited Phil Jackson. Because he's the coach. He's considered the leader, right? When a football team wins a Super Bowl, hopefully one day Atlanta will win. Hopefully. Who do they credit? Yeah, they credit the quarterback, they credit the wide receiver, whoever, but they also credit who?
Coach.
They credit the coach. Speaking of the Falcons, by the way, the prior coach wrote a book which just came out called You Win First in the Locker Room. Read that book. You win first in the locker room. Sometimes we stick to reading books that only mention Allah and the Prophet, and if it doesn't have a mention of Imam Hussein, we're not going to read the book. Why? Where do we learn this philosophy from? Imam Ali alayhi salam, when Egypt was conquered, it was not during his rule. It was during the rule of the second Khalifa. When they came across the books, which were non-Islamic, what did they do? Do you know what they did with the books? They burned them. They used them to heat the water that was going to be used in the bathhouses. And the news came to Amir al-Mu'mineen. So he questioned the leadership at that time. He said, why are you burning these books? He said, because they're not our books, they're books of other. And Egypt already had a culture there for thousands of years. They already had, Coptic Christians were already living there. To this day they live there. And it had been a center for learning. Alexander, when he went there, they established Alexandria. And it had become a center of learning. They had the great library of